By the time the elevators opened on the 72nd floor, Jade Rodriguez had already counted 3 exits, 2 blind corners, and 1 senator's son carrying a pistol where the host list said he should have had nothing more dangerous than a tuxedo stud. She adjusted her cuff once. An old signal to the 6-person close protection team spread through Mateo DeLuca's penthouse and stepped into the light. The room looked like diplomacy wrapped in crystal. Floor-to-ceiling glass bled Manhattan into the ballroom. Silver trays floated through clusters of old money faces, and a string quartet played something expensive enough to make people forgive each other for indictments. Argent Holdings logos were everywhere, subtle and smug. The company's public face was shipping, logistics, infrastructure. Men in tailored suits discussed port contracts over imported champagne and pretended they had never heard words like extortion, laundering, or enforcement. Jade knew where every body was buried anyway. "Status," she said into her mic, her tone flat enough not to crack the lacquered mood. "South Terrace clear. Kitchen clear. Private corridor secure." She watched Mateo from 20 feet away. Dark suit, easy smile, a hand at the small of Vivian Hale's back, like she was already property. To the papers, their engagement was a merger of dynastic fortunes. DeLuca liquidity meeting Hale legitimacy. To people who understood power, it was cleaner than a peace treaty and more binding than blood. Vivian brought East Coast political connections old enough to survive elections. Mateo brought cash flow and fear. Together, they made federal investigations disappear into procedural fog, which was why Jade had this assignment herself. She didn't delegate high-volatility protection details. Not when optics mattered more than bullets, and one wrong move could start a war between men who said business disagreement and meant funerals. She'd fought too hard to run protection at Argent to let one socialite gala turn her into a cautionary story. A waiter passed. Jade caught his wrist without looking and relieved him of a steak knife tucked against his forearm. His face blanched. I didn't. "You forgot to clear secondary metal at service entrance," she said quietly. "Go home before I decide you meant that." He fled. No one noticed. That was how good she was. Disasters in this world were never prevented with applause. Across the room, Vivian turned as if she felt Jade's attention. She was beautiful in a way that looked effortless from far away, and exhausting up close, diamond earrings and pale silk, and a smile trained for photographers since childhood. But when her gaze met Jade's, there was calculation there, not fragility. Vivienne lifted her glass slightly in a polite salute. Jade didn't return it. Professionals didn't wave from the perimeter. Instead, she moved to the edge of Mateo's circle as he accepted congratulations from a hedge fund couple with ties to Albany. Raffaele Costa hovered nearby, broad shoulders filling his suit like he resented the tailoring. Costa ran dock security and a good portion of the off-book freight routes. He was one of Mateo's capos, old school and territorial, and he hated being told to coordinate through a woman half his age. He gave Jade a glance and a smile with no warmth in it. "Big night, Rodriguez. Try not to scare the guests. I'd rather scare them than bury them." Costa's smile thinned. Mateo heard it and laughed as if they were all old friends. "Jade sees ghosts everywhere," Mateo said, clapping Costa's shoulder. "That's why she's useful." Useful, not trusted, never equal. Jade had learned years ago to wear that like armor. Her phone vibrated once in her pocket, an internal ping from Argent Systems. Routine, in theory. She checked it with a thumb swipe while appearing to scan the room. Finance compliance flagged a transfer anomaly in a dormant maritime account. Marked urgent. Submitted by E. Marquez, junior analyst. Jade dismissed it. Tonight wasn't paperwork. Tonight was pulse and proximity, making sure tomorrow existed. At 10:30, Matteo tapped his glass. The quartet softened. The room shifted toward him like iron filings to a magnet. He put an arm around Vivienne and gave the sort of speech people wrote editorials about. Family, future, responsibility, the city they loved. He thanked donors, judges, our law enforcement partners. Laughter. Toasts lifted. Jade's eyes moved over the service flow as the champagne came out in synchronized waves. New tray at 1 o'clock. Too fast from kitchen to floor. Wrong server rotation. She stepped forward. Vivienne raised her flute first. Matteo lifted his half a heartbeat later. "Before anything," he said, smiling toward her, "to my fiancé." They drank. Vivienne swallowed, smiled for the room, and then her fingers slackened. Crystal slipped from her hand, shattered against marble, and she folded in on herself like someone had cut her strings. The room gasped as one organism. Matteo shouted her name and dropped beside her. Jade was already moving. She hit her mic. "Lockdown. Full. No one leaves." She knelt, rolled Vivienne to protect airway. 2 fingers a carotid. Rapid pulse, skin cold, pupils uneven. Not fainting. Chemical event. "Medic now," she barked. A second waiter, white-faced, moved toward Matteo with another flute. "Sir." Jade snatched the glass from his tray and smelled bitter almond beneath citrus garnish. Poison. She hurled the drink into a potted palm, grabbed Matteo by the collar, and shoved him backwards so hard 2 donors stumbled with him. "Don't touch anything," she said. Security doors slammed as magnetic locks engaged. Guests shouted. A woman cried. Someone started filming and got their phone taken by a DeLuca soldier with a dead-eyed expression that promised no return policy. Jade looked up to the ceiling camera near the bar. "Red light on. Feed live. Good. Pull all footage from 2100 onward," she ordered over comms. "Service corridor, kitchen, mezzanine. Mirror to my terminal only. If anyone asks, the system's down." "Copy." Medics in black suits, not EMTs, DeLuca House physicians, arrived with a rolling kit. They injected Vivienne, inserted airway adjunct, started fluids while Matteo knelt beside them in polished shoes, jaw clenched hard enough to crack enamel. He looked up at Jade. No panic, just rage searching for shape. "Who?" "I'm finding out." "Find faster." By midnight, the penthouse was a controlled panic dressed as discretion. Guests had signed non-disclosure threats masquerading as confidentiality agreements and were released in waves. The marble floor had been cleaned. Blood pressure monitors beeped in Matteo's private suite where Vivienne remained unconscious but stable. In the security room, Jade stood over a bank of screens as footage compiled. She watched service entry timestamp 2214. Waiter line passing through scanner. A woman in a black sheath dress stepping between them, head down, slipping a vial into a chilled tray. The feed zoomed. Elena Marquez, Argent Finance, compliance analyst. The same name from the transfer flag. Jade narrowed her eyes. Elena was quiet, good with numbers, almost invisible in the headquarters hallways. No known vice debt, no family leverage, no social ties to rivals. Not the profile for a high-risk poisoning op. But there she was, cleanly framed in high definition. Too cleanly. A new message flashed. Badge log confirmation attached. It showed Elena's keycard accessing service corridor at 2209. "Got her," one technician said. Matteo entered the room with Costa at his shoulder. Matteo's face had gone still in the way that frightened people who knew him. "Tell me." Jade gestured to the screen. Footage and access logs place Elena Marquez in the service lane before contamination. Vivienne ingested first dose. I intercepted a second intended for you. Costa cursed in Italian, then leaned close to the monitor with theatrical disbelief. Finance girl? Who recruited her? Matteo didn't answer. He watched Elena's frozen face on screen as if memorizing where to place the knife. Bring her to me, he said. Alive? Jade asked. He looked at her, offended by the question and pleased by it. For now, I want names before dawn. Costa added, no mistakes, Rodriguez. If she runs, it looks like weakness. Jade didn't react. I'll handle it. She took a car with no plates to Argent's downtown records annex, where after-hours compliance staff hid from executives and fluorescent lighting alike. Rain glossed the sidewalks. Two of her people covered exits while she went in through a freight elevator that smelled like oil and cardboard. Floor 7 was silent except for HVAC hum and the distant clatter of old pipes. Rows of archived files made narrow canyons of shadow. Motion sensor lights blinked awake ahead of her, one zone at a time. Elena Marquez, Jade called, voice low. Come out. Don't make me drag you. No answer. She moved deeper, hand near the small of her back where her sidearm sat. At the end of aisle C14, a figure stepped out with both hands visible. Elena was smaller than she looked in office clothes. Dark hair scraped back, rain on her sleeves, expression not terrified enough for a woman hunted by DeLuca men. You found me fast, Elena said. You weren't hiding hard. I was waiting for you. Jade kept distance. On your knees. Elena shook her head once and held out a flash drive between two fingers like an offering. If you take me to Matteo before you watch what's on this, I die, and you lose the only proof you'll get. That line works in movies. This isn't a line. Check the metadata in the gala footage. Check who signed the override on badge logs. Then ask why your system flagged my audit right before I was turned into a headline. Jade's jaw tightened. You poisoned Vivian. I didn't. Elena's voice stayed steady, but her hand trembled. Someone inside your inner circle is laundering war funds through Argent. I found the ledger. Tonight was cover. Frame me, kill me, close the hole. Jade took the drive, but didn't lower her guard. Names. Raffaele Costa's shell signatures are all over it. Offshore routing into Palermo and Catania cutouts. Money meant for DeLuca operations diverted to a Sicilian rival. I flagged it yesterday. 2 hours later, my credentials were cloned. The aisle felt narrower. Jade heard rain hammering window glass somewhere above them. If Elena was lying, she was either brilliantly prepared or suicidal. If she was telling the truth, Jade was standing in a kill box with evidence someone powerful wanted erased by sunrise. Her phone buzzed. Matteo. She let it ring once, then answered. I have movement. Then close it, Matteo said. Costa's men are mobilizing. I want her in my office in 40 minutes. Understood. She ended the call and looked back at Elena, who was watching her with the kind of exhausted defiance Jade recognized from mirrors. Turn around, Jade said. Elena did slowly. Jade patted her down. No weapon, one burner phone, a key card, split knuckles like she'd hit concrete recently. Not a poisoner's hands, an office worker's hands after a bad night. Jade zip-tied her wrists loosely enough not to cut circulation, tightly enough for appearances, and marched her out through the stacks. In the elevator, Elena said softly, if you deliver me, Costa gets what he wants. If you don't, you're dead with me. Jade stared at the descending floor numbers. Don't mistake delay for trust. Outside, one of Jade's men opened the SUV rear door. Jade shoved Elena in and slid beside her, then gave the driver an address in Queens that was not Matteo's penthouse, not any known holding site. Not anywhere on official DeLuca maps. The driver glanced in the mirror. "Boss?" "Route change," Jade said. "Potential surveillance on primary." He hesitated. Mateo said, "I said route change." He drove. They crossed the bridge under low clouds, city lights smeared in wet gold. Jade texted a false update from a secure app. Subject fled. Tracking active. Need additional units, south sector. Within seconds, replies flooded in. Mateo demanding updates, Costa volunteering intercept teams. Even a detective from NYPD organized crime offering to assist quietly, which told Jade everything she needed to know about how compromised tonight already was. She muted them all. The SUV stopped behind a DeLuca-owned boxing gym long after midnight. Upstairs, above the stink of sweat and old leather, was a one-bedroom safe apartment used for injured fighters and occasionally for people who needed to vanish for 48 hours. No cameras, no digital lock, only a deadbolt and habit. Jade cut Elena's zip ties and handed her a bottle of water. "You stay away from windows. You touch that door without me, you won't make the stairs." Elena rubbed her wrists and nodded. "You looked at the footage already, didn't you?" "Enough to know it was edited in a hurry." "Then we don't have long." Jade stood in the doorway, phone dark in her hand, listening to the muffled thud of someone working a heavy bag downstairs in the all-night gym. Every instinct she'd built in 15 years screamed that she was stepping off the map. Failure here wasn't emotion. It was civil war in tailored suits, federal seizures, retaliation hits, men like Costa rewriting the organization in blood. It was every captain who tolerated Jade because she was effective, deciding she had become expensive. And still, when she looked at Elena, scared, stubborn, framed, Jade felt the first fracture in her old certainty. Loyalty had always been simple. Protect the principle. Contain the threat. Survive. Tonight, the threat was wearing her own uniform. Jade closed the apartment door and threw the deadbolt, then crossed to the kitchen counter where a battered lockbox sat behind a stack of protein tubs. She keyed it open, pulled out a slim, hardened, offline by default laptop, and set it between them. Elena watched her hands. "You keep an offline machine in a boxing gym?" "I keep contingencies in places men don't search because they think they're too smart to sweat." Jade inserted the flash drive. For 10 seconds, nothing. Then directories bloomed across the screen. Transfer logs, shell company filings, internal approval chains, and one folder labeled Gala_feeds_raw. Elena stepped closer, stopping just outside arm's reach, like she knew Jade's boundaries by instinct. "Start with checksum reports." Jade did. The penthouse footage file marked as original failed integrity against its own backup hash. 2 edits, both inserted between 2212 and 2216. The exact window when Vivian and Mateo were served. Jade opened the internal audit trail. User ID says Operations Supervisor Collins. Collins was in Connecticut tonight. His credentials were remote mirrored, Elena said. "Look at admin override token." Jade's jaw flexed. The override belonged to our Costa-SEC3. Could be spoofed. Could be planted. Could also be exactly what it looked like. Her phone lit up again, Mateo calling, then Costa right after, then 2 team leads asking for orders. Jade ignored all of them, opened badge logs, and found the second rot point. Elena's keycard had pinged at the service corridor, yes, but another ping showed the same card simultaneously at an elevator bank 2 floors down. Clone. She looked at Elena. Who else has this drive? No one. Who knows you found the ledger? I filed an anomaly report through internal compliance, automated routing copied legal, CFO office, and executive security. Executive security means Costa saw it. Elena nodded once. I got locked out of my terminal within an hour. Jade swore under her breath. Clean, fast, institutional. Below them, gloves hit heavy bag in relentless thuds. Jade turned back to the laptop and opened a transfer map. Money fanned from Argent subsidiaries through shipping insurers in Malta, then into cultural foundations, then into freight cooperatives tied to Palermo and Catania, names she recognized from old briefings, families that smiled at DeLuca emissaries and skimmed them in the dark. Not side hustle money, operational money, bribes, guns, payroll. A war chest siphoned from Matteo's own machine. Elena's voice dropped. If Costa's building an external alliance, he needed Matteo politically weakened. The engagement made DeLuca Hale too stable. Poisoning Vivian fractures that. Framing me gives him a disposable villain and kills the ledger at the same time. Jade stared at the flowchart until it blurred. This says intent. It doesn't yet say admissible. There's more. I pulled witness statements from Gala staff after compliance requested incident interviews. She opened a PDF and pointed. One waiter's sworn statement describing Elena at the tray station was copied, almost word for word, from an old internal memo about a liquor theft case 6 months ago. Same typo, same phrasing, even the same wrong description of camera placement. Fabricated under pressure. Jade leaned back, suddenly tired in her bones. You just declared war on a capo and gave me paperwork. Elena met her eyes. You asked for proof, not comfort. That should have annoyed her. Instead, Jade felt a sharp, unwilling respect. She stood, grabbed a burner from her pocket, and dialed one of her field operators. Mendez, you're on open channel? A crackle. Yeah. Push chatter that Elena was spotted near Red Hook ferry lot. Put 3 cars there, lights visible. Make noise. I want every idiot with a gun chasing shadows. Copy. Matteo's furious. He can schedule a feeling after sunrise. She hung up and turned to Elena. We move in 10. Where? Somewhere your numbers have physical bones. The Port Newark Annex office smelled like mildew and diesel. Jade had gotten them in through a side gate with a key she'd lifted years ago from a now-retired dockmaster. At 2:47 a.m., the administrative floor was mostly dark, except for emergency strips along the baseboards. Jade moved first, suppressed pistol angled down. Elena followed with a messenger bag and a borrowed hoodie zipped to her throat. Storage room B should have hard copy manifests, Elena whispered. Jade didn't answer. She was listening, not for footsteps, for absence. Docks were never truly quiet. There was always a forklift beep, a metal rattle, radio static, a man coughing. Tonight there was only wind thudding against corrugated steel. Trap or luck? In this world, usually trap. They found storage B and pried the latch with a tire iron. Inside were rows of banker boxes tagged by quarter. Elena went straight to 4Q archives like someone following coordinates she'd memorized under threat. She dropped to her knees, rifled, found a ledger binder sealed with red tape, and held it up. These are physical transfer authorizations. If the digital chain gets scrubbed, this survives. Jade took it, flipping pages with gloved fingers. Costa's security division had signed off on special handling fees to shell haulers that didn't exist on any public registry. From the hallway came a scrape, rubber sole on concrete. Jade killed her flashlight and pulled Elena down between shelves. 2 men passed the doorway. Not dock workers, broad-shouldered, clean shoes, voices low. Costa said 3rd floor too. Rodriguez won't risk calling this in. She's dirty already. Jade's pulse slowed, not sped. Clarity in danger. She mouthed to Elena, "Back exit." They moved along the rear wall, ducking through a records cage to a maintenance stairwell. On the landing, Elena's foot slipped on rain tracked in from an open door. Jade caught her by the waist, hard and immediate, their bodies colliding in the dark. For a second, neither moved. Elena's breath hitched. "Sorry. Don't apologize for gravity." They kept going. Outside, dock lights smeared through fog. Cargo cranes loomed like steel skeletons over black water. Jade led Elena between stacked containers, counting angles, checking mirrors on truck cabs for reflection movement. A beam of light swept across the lane behind them. "Stop!" a voice shouted. Jade shoved Elena behind a container corner and fired one suppressed round into a floodlight. Glass burst, darkness swallowed the lane. They ran to a rusted service van Jade had staged an hour earlier and peeled out as two SUVs fish-tailed into the yard. Elena gripped the dash. Those were Costa's men? Could be Mateo's. At this point, uniforms are decorative. By the time they hit the bridge, Jade's encrypted app had 17 unread messages. She opened the least hysterical one first. Detective Hollis, OCTF. Heard you're hunting Marquez. Can help with clean pickup. Off books. Jade stared at it until she laughed once without humor. Cops didn't offer off-books favors at 3 a.m. unless someone had already paid the invoice. Another message from Costa. You're running out of road. Deliver the girl. Then Mateo. Call me. Now. Jade typed neither a lie nor the truth. Tracking lead. No contact yet. She pocketed the phone and drove them not back to Queens, but to a church in the Bronx, with a basement card room DeLuca cruise used for low-level cash games and discreet meetings. Father Bruno never asked questions, as long as donations arrived in clean envelopes. At this hour, only two old men played gin under fluorescent lights, while an exhausted bartender wiped down plastic tables. Jade nodded to the bartender. Office. He unlocked a supply closet in back that held a desk, a fan, and no obvious bugs. Elena set the ledger binder down. You have safe houses everywhere? I have places men underestimate. Different thing. Jade plugged a second burner into the laptop and began imaging the new files. While progress bars crawled, she finally called Mateo. He answered on the first ring. Where are you? South sector. We had a possible visual, lost it. I'm being told she hit Port Newark. Could be planted intel. A beat. Costa says you're sandbagging. Costa says a lot when he wants someone else doing his dirty work. Silence stretched. Jade could almost see Mateo deciding whether to trust her competence or his paranoia. Vivienne woke, he said at last. Weak but coherent. She asked for you. Jade kept her voice level. I can be there in 40. No, finish this first, then come in. The line went dead. Elena had gone still. He said no. Mateo doesn't refuse optics unless he's controlling access. Or unless Vivienne didn't actually ask for you. Jade hated that Elena said what she was already thinking. The imaging finished. Jade encrypted 3 copies. One on a hidden partition, one on a microdrive taped beneath the desk drawer. One uploaded in fragments to dead storage nodes she controlled through an old freight routing protocol nobody in executive security remembered existed. Contingency on contingency. Then the closet light flickered. Once, twice. A signal. Jade drew her gun and opened the door a crack. The bartender stood there, hands up. Phone call for Rodriguez. Woman. Said urgent. No names. He swallowed. She said to tell you the swan is breathing. Vivienne's gala centerpiece had been sculpted swans in ice. Jade followed him to the bar phone, took it, and said nothing. A woman's voice came low and controlled through static. "If this is intercepted, hang up and tell them I cried." Jade turned away from the room. "You sound stronger than your chart." I had to look weak. Costa posted 2 of his men outside my door under the excuse of extra security. Matteo let him. "Why call here?" "Because your penthouse channels are poisoned." A pause, soft inhale. "And because I know you didn't deliver Elena." Jade's grip tightened. "You don't know that." "I know Matteo. If you had, she'd be gone, and so would you, eventually." Vivienne's voice sharpened. "Listen carefully. The transfer keys tied to my family trust were used to authorize emergency liquidity into Arjun's political arm 6 months ago. I didn't sign those releases. I have the physical key matrix and biometric challenge logs. If Elena's data is real, I can authenticate the fraud path." Elena, across the room, read Jade's face and stood. Jade said, "Why help?" "Because I'm not volunteering to marry a collapsing regime run by men who think poisoning me is a scheduling issue. Not fear, strategy." Vivienne had always been wearing armor too, just silk-lined. Before Jade could answer, another voice bled faintly through the call, male, muffled. "Ma'am, medication time." Vivienne dropped her tone to a whisper. "There's more. Matteo authorized a contingency cleanup at 1:10. I heard him from my bathroom while they thought I was sedated. Quote, Marquez, then anyone sheltering Marquez. End it before breakfast." Jade felt the floor tilt, not from surprise, but from confirmation of something she had refused to name. Matteo hadn't asked for truth. He'd asked for narrative control until disposal was convenient. "You're sure?" Jade said. "I grew up around men who lie for sport, Jade. I know what certainty sounds like. A breath. There's a Port Authority charity auction tomorrow night at Pier 48. Every captain, donor, and city parasite will be there. Costa plans to toast our future. If you want to cut his throat politically, that's your stage." "Why trust me with this?" "Because you're the only person in that building who still distinguishes duty from obedience." The line clicked dead. Jade stood with the receiver against her ear until dial tone flattened into a single note. Then she hung up and looked at Elena. "Well?" Elena asked. Jade told her, concise and brutal. "Vivienne awake, Costa inside her security bubble, trust keys available. Matteo cleanup order, including Elena and anyone sheltering." Elena's face drained of color, but her voice stayed steady. "So, we're both already dead on paper." "Looks that way." Outside, church bells marked 4 a.m. Jade walked back into the supply office, shut the door, and spread the ledger, flash drive copies, and a stolen port manifest across the desk like battle maps. She drew 3 circles in pen. Costa, Matteo, public stage. "We can't win a private argument with men who own the referees," she said. "No more back channels, no handing evidence to internal. We go loud or we disappear." Elena leaned over the table beside her, shoulder brushing Jade's. Neither moved away. "Vivienne in?" Elena asked. "She called first. That counts." "And you trust her?" "I trust her incentives, same as I trust yours." Elena gave a tired half-smile. Romantic. Jade met her eyes, something unarmored, flickering and gone. "Don't get comfortable." She took out a fresh burner and typed a single message to an unknown number Vivienne had just used. "I'm in. Need access protocol, seating map, AV backbone, and your schedule windows. No leaks." Reply came 20 seconds later. "Then we do this together." Jade deleted the thread crushed the SIM, and dropped it into the sink disposal. When she looked up, dawn was beginning to gray the basement windows, turning the room the color of old steel. For the first time in years, her orders came from no one above her. For the first time, that felt less like freedom than stepping onto thin ice with 2 women and a city full of guns behind them. "Get 30 minutes of sleep if you can," Jade said. Elena shook her head. "Can't." "Me neither." Jade reassembled her pistol, checked magazine weight by feel, and began planning how to burn an empire in public without getting Elena, or Vivian, killed before the microphones went live. Jade had just finished sketching entry and exit routes for Pier 48 when her encrypted app lit up with a priority code she only gave active field leads. "Mendez. Do not return to Jim. Costa crew already there." A second message hit before she could answer. "Mendez. Internal broadcast just dropped. You're flagged compromised. Shoot on sight authorized if resisting detention." Elena looked up from the desk. What happened? Jade turned the phone so she could read. Then a third notification appeared, this one forwarded from a security lieutenant who apparently hadn't decided which side he wanted to die on. "Argent internal security alert. 0512 subjects. Rodriguez, Jade/Marquez. Elena status. Armed. Extremely dangerous notes. Rodriguez assisted primary suspect in evading investigation after attempted murder of V. Hale. All captains. Detained for executive review. Deadly force authorized if necessary." No signature, but it didn't need one. Mateo's stamp was in the language. Polished, legalistic, lethal. Elena swallowed. He made you the kidnapper. He made me disposable. Jade was already moving, wiping prints from the desk, scooping drives, kicking the trash can over to make sure no SIM fragments remained. "Pack only what we can run with. Hard copies in your bag. Laptop with me." From upstairs came the grind of the church's front door opening hard enough to rattle hinges. Then boots, not parishioners. Jade killed the office light and pulled Elena behind shelving as voices rolled down the hallway. "Back rooms first. Costa said Rodriguez may have armed support." The bartender's voice came tight and too loud. "I told you, nobody's here. We close at 2. A crack, flesh on tile. Someone grunted in pain. Elena flinched. Jade held up one finger. "Wait." The hallway filled with flashlight beams slicing under the door. Jade checked her magazine, then pointed toward a service hatch near the floor. Old utility access into a crawl space that fed the boiler room. She whispered against Elena's ear. "On my count. No noise." The doorknob turned. Jade fired twice through the wood at knee height. A man screamed and dropped. She kicked the door inward into the second man's chest, grabbed Elena's sleeve, and dove for the hatch. They hit concrete on the other side and belly crawled through dust and heating pipes while shouting erupted behind them. Someone tried to follow and got stuck at the shoulders, cursing. They emerged behind the boiler, slipped through a coal chute door into an alley that smelled like wet brick and old cooking oil, and ran. By the time they reached the corner, sirens were converging from 3 directions, too fast for random response. Jade dragged Elena into a produce loading bay and watched 2 NYPD cruisers and an unmarked black SUV stop in front of the church. Detective Hollis stepped out of the SUV, coffee in hand, calm as a landlord doing an inspection. He spoke to one of Costa's men like they were on the same payroll. Elena stared. They're not even hiding it. They don't have to. Jade's voice was flat. If Costa wins, this gets filed as a violent apprehension. If Mateo wins, it gets filed as internal correction. If both lose, everyone burns records and says they were never there. In her pocket, the phone buzzed again. Unknown number, short text. Hospital transfer in 20. V sedated. Destination not on chart. S. Vivian's channel. Jade's blood ran cold. If Costa moved Vivian now, the only person who could authenticate the trust keys would vanish before the auction. If they disappear her, we lose public proof, Elena said, reading her expression. Then it's just us waving spreadsheets at people with guns. Jade nodded once. Stakes, finely stripped of abstraction. If Costa locked Vivian down and erased Elena, he could walk into Pier 48 tonight, toast Matteo, and steer 2 families into war while every ledger vanished into legal privilege. The docks would split, captains would choose sides, and half the city's union locals and council offices would become collateral. And Jade would go down in the story as the traitor who helped poison a bride. She exhaled slowly. We intercept the transfer. They stole a gray panel van from behind a florist on 149th, swapped plates twice, and reached Midtown as dawn thinned into a colorless morning. Jade parked 1 block off St. Catherine Medical, where Vivienne had supposedly been recovering under private observation. Supposedly. Jade scanned through binoculars. 2 armored SUVs idling at ambulance entrance. 4 men in DeLuca detail suits, but only one she recognized as house security. The others were Costa's dock enforcers, wearing rented professionalism. No official transfer paperwork at the desk. No hospital badge movement on the side door. Off-book extraction. Mendez called through encrypted voice. Wind and engine noise behind him. I got your ping. I'm 2 minutes out north side with a bike. Negative. Stay mobile, Jade said. I need eyes on 6th and 52nd. Any external tail, call it. You got it. Jade. Internal chatter says Matteo put $250,000 on Marquez alive till midnight, dead after. Elena looked away, jaw locking. Jade answered, Then we finish before midnight. A stretcher rolled out. Vivienne lay strapped under a blanket, oxygen mask in place, eyes closed, 2 IV lines taped to her arm. 1 gloved hand hung slightly off the rail. As the team loaded her, that hand moved. 2 fingers tapping in a rhythm too precise for sedation. 3. Pause. 1. Pause. 2. Jade recognized the count sequence from old protective drills. Active threat in transport team. Not sedated enough to be helpless, Elena whispered, or pretending better than all of us. Jade started the van. The convoy pulled into traffic, heading downtown instead of toward any listed private clinic. Jade followed at 3 cars' distance, while Elena tracked side streets on a paper map. Phones were too hot now. At 46th and 9th, a sanitation truck accidentally blocked the lane. The convoy slowed. Jade saw her opening. Seatbelt tight. She punched the van forward, clipped the rear escort SUV hard enough to spin it into parked scooters, then angled to box the lead vehicle against a bus stop. Gunfire cracked from the passenger side window of the SUV. Glass exploded across Jade's face. She ducked, steering with 1 hand, returning 2 controlled shots through the windshield seam. The lead driver slumped. The vehicle rolled onto the curb. Mendez's bike screamed in from the side street, engine shrill. He slid between cars and put 3 rounds into the second escort's radiator, disabling it in steam and hissing coolant. Go! Go! He shouted, visor up, eyes wild. Jade and Elena bailed from the van and ran to the stretcher vehicle. Jade yanked the rear doors open. Empty. No Vivian, no medic, no blood. Just straps and a warm blanket wrapped around a sandbag torso shaped under hospital sheets. Decoy. Jade felt the hit like a fist to the sternum. Damn it. Elena grabbed her arm. Jade. A shotgun blast tore into the bus shelter above them, raining plexiglass shards. Costa's men were regrouping from both sidewalks. Mendez fired from behind his bike, covering them. "Get out! I'll hold!" Jade dragged Elena toward the alley, cut through, then turned back. "Mendez!" He looked at her once, quick grin despite the chaos. "You still owe me that raise." Then a round caught him high in the neck. He folded against the bike, choking on blood, hands still trying to raise his weapon. Jade started toward him. Elena pulled her with both hands, voice cracking. "If you go back, we all die." Another volley chewed brick at their feet. Jade made the call she would hate later and ran. They cleared 2 blocks, vaulted a chain gate, and collapsed behind dumpster bins in a garment district courtyard while sirens thickened again in the distance. Jade's hands were shaking, not from adrenaline, from rage focused too fine to spend. Mendez was dead. Vivienne was gone. And Costa had burned a decoy transfer in daylight on Manhattan streets just to prove he controlled tempo. That couldn't be fixed in the next breath. Elena pressed her back to the wall, eyes wet but dry-faced, the way people cried when they no longer trusted sound. "I'm sorry." "For what?" "For existing in your life at the wrong time." Jade looked at her like she wanted to argue, then didn't. For 10 seconds, there was only distant sirens and the clatter of a loading dock door. Then Jade pulled out her phone, opened her dead node storage, and felt the second punch land. 2 of the 3 evidence fragments had gone dark. Remote purge. Someone inside her old comm architecture had found and burned the nodes. She still had 1 fragment set, plus hard copy ledger pages in Elena's bag. Enough to accuse. Not enough to survive cross-examination without Vivienne's keys. Jade let her head rest against cold concrete. "We're running out of proof." They hid until noon in a shuttered laundromat owned by a retired DeLuca bookmaker who owed Jade for getting his son out of Rikers. He gave them water, gauze, and silence, then locked the front and left through the back. Jade sat at a folding table cleaning blood and glass from a cut along her temple. Elena stood at the industrial sink, scrubbing Mendez's blood from her sleeves like she could undo 1 consequence if she worked hard enough. When the water ran clear, she turned off the tap and stayed facing the metal basin. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then quietly, "When I was 11, my mother taught me how to keep 2 sets of books." Jade glanced up. Elena gave a small, brittle laugh. "Not criminally, not at first. My father ran a grocery in El Paso. Cash business. Border inspections were random and expensive and sometimes invented. So she kept 1 ledger for taxes and 1 for survival. Who got paid late, who got paid under the table, which cousin needed medicine. She told me numbers are honest until people touch them." She wrapped her arms around herself and finally turned. Her composure was gone, not dramatic, just worn through. "I became a forensic accountant because I thought if I got good enough, paper would protect people. Rules, systems, trails. You expose the fraud. The right people intervene. Everyone says thank you. Maybe you sleep." Her mouth trembled once. "But every time I told the truth this week, somebody bled for it. The waiter who signed that fake statement. Your bartender, Mendez." Jade set the cloth down. "Costa killed Mendez. Because of me. Because he's a predator." Elena shook her head harder, eyes bright now. "You don't get it. I am so tired of being the woman whose existence becomes leverage. At Argent, I kept my head down, never flirted, never gave anyone a story. Still got copied on fake invoices because I was quiet and reliable. Still got framed because I was small enough to crush. And now..." She wiped her face angrily. "Now you're burning your life for me, and part of me keeps thinking I should walk out that door and let them take me so this stops spreading." Jade stood. crossed the room slowly, giving Elena space to step back if she wanted. Elena didn't. Jade said low, "If you walk out that door, it doesn't stop. It teaches them the method works." Elena laughed once through the tears. "I hate that you always sound like a mission brief." "It's how I keep from feeling everything at once." "Do you?" Elena searched her face. "Keep from feeling it?" Jade hesitated, a rare visible crack. "No." They stood there with laundromat machines silent around them, city noise muffled by cinderblock walls. Elena took a breath that shook and steadied. "I'm scared all the time now. Not of dying exactly, of being rewritten, of becoming the villain in a story men already sold." She held Jade's gaze. "If I go down, I need one person to remember what actually happened." "I remember," Jade said. It landed between them, heavier than a promise. Elena nodded, wiped her cheeks, and drew herself back upright. "Then tell me what to do." Jade handed her a clean shirt and a pen. "Write everything you know in timeline format. Names, times, file paths, where you found each anomaly. If we get separated, paper outlives panic." Elena took the shirt. "And you?" "I'm going to get us a door back into Pier 48. By late afternoon, the sky over the Hudson had gone the color of gunmetal. Pier 48 gleamed with event lighting and civic hypocrisy. Banners for the Port Authority charity auction, tuxedoed staff, floral installations, police barricades, donor check-in kiosks. Jade and Elena watched from the roof of a cold storage warehouse across the avenue through a scope and a stolen event tablet. Security had doubled since morning. That was expected. What wasn't? Matteo and Costa arriving together. Matteo stepped from a black sedan, expression carved from marble, arm offered to a woman in Vivienne's dress, Vivienne's jewels, Vivienne's posture. But as she turned under the lights, Jade saw it. Wrong gait, right shoulder too high. A body double. "Jesus," Elena whispered. "He's replaced her." "Or he's hiding that she's missing," Jade said. The tablet pinged with updated seating data pulled from a compromised catering account. Commission envoys were confirmed. 2 deputy mayors. 3 union heads. Every person whose witness mattered. If Costa managed tonight without disruption, the fake Vivienne on Matteo's arm would close ranks long enough to bury the attempted poisoning as isolated insider sabotage by rogue staff. And Elena's name would become official poison forever. Jade would be the armed accomplice neutralized in absentia. Mendez's death would disappear into pending investigation. End of file. Yeah. Jade keyed her mic to a frequency Vivienne had provided for emergency household comms, the one she'd hoped never to use. Swan channel, confirm status. Only static. Then, faintly, a woman's voice. Not Vivienne's. Reading what sounded like medication dosages. Hospital background noise. Elena frowned. That's not from the pier. Jade triangulated the burst against nearby repeaters using the tablet's diagnostics tool. One match popped. A private recovery facility in Long Island City, DeLuca owned, officially closed for renovation. Costa parked her in a clinic box and rolled out a stand-in. Jade said, "Final move before he goes public." Her jaw tightened. He thinks we'll strike the ballroom and never notice she can't authenticate. Elena looked from the scope to Jade. "Can we split? You get Vivienne, I plant the ledger packet into auction AV." "No. You can't do both alone." "Also no." Below them, limousines kept arriving. The event clock on the tablet read 0:47 to opening toast. Jade made the call anyway, each word clipped. "We hit the clinic first. Get Vivienne and the key matrix, then reroute to pier through service tunnel B. If we miss the toast window, We improvise. Elena stared at the countdown. 47 minutes in Manhattan traffic is fantasy. Then we stop driving and start stealing. As if summoned by bad timing, 3 men stepped onto the warehouse roof access stair behind them, weapons low but ready. DeLuca tactical jackets. One of them was a lieutenant Jade had trained herself. He looked almost apologetic. "Boss, don't make this messy. Orders are bring you in breathing if possible." Jade rose slowly, gun in hand, placing herself half a step in front of Elena. From the pier across the street, music swelled as the first guests entered under chandeliers. The lieutenant lifted his weapon. "Drop it." Jade didn't. Behind her, Elena's fingers tightened around the satchel holding the last hard copy ledger and her handwritten timeline. Everything left that could still crack an empire. The event clock ticked down to 0046. The event clock ticked down to 0046. Jade kept her weapon level, eyes on the lieutenant she'd trained to clear stairwells without looking at his boots. His name was Paolo Esposito, and he was good enough to be dangerous, young enough to still hesitate. "Paolo," she said, "if you were sent to bring me in, why are your men in kill spacing?" His jaw twitched. "Because you stopped being predictable. Or because Costa doesn't want me breathing." One of the men behind Paolo shifted, finger tightening. Jade heard the tiny scrape of leather on polymer and moved before thought could slow her. She kicked a loose vent cap off the rooftop. It clanged hard to their left. Both men flinched toward the sound. Jade fired once, took the closest gun hand at the wrist, pivoted, and slammed her elbow into Paolo's throat. Elena dropped flat behind an HVAC unit, exactly as Jade had taught civilians to do when panic stole language. The third man got a shot off. Concrete spat chips by Jade's cheek. She rushed him, drove him backward into the stair rail, and ripped the pistol from his hand. By the time Paolo recovered enough to reach his ankle piece, Jade had both captured guns pointed at his chest. "Done," she said, breath controlled. "Tell your men to stand down." Paolo coughed, one hand at his neck, eyes watering with fury. "You're dead anyway." "Maybe. But if Elena dies, every file I have drops to Federal, Commission, and Palermo channels in 90 seconds. Costa knows that. Ask yourself why he didn't tell you." Paolo hesitated. The man with the wrist wound was moaning, blood soaking his sleeve. The third was semi-conscious against the rail. Jade didn't blink. "Your choice is hospital paperwork or body bag." Paolo lifted his hand slowly, signaling retreat. "Downstairs, now." They backed toward the stairwell. Jade stripped comm earpieces, smashed them under her heel, zip-tied wrists with their own flex cuffs, and took Paolo's key fob. "Elena," she said without turning, "move." They ran. The DeLuca recovery facility in Long Island City looked abandoned from the street. Construction mesh, dark windows, a permit board dated 6 months out of compliance. Inside, it smelled of antiseptic and fresh paint, the kind of clean built to hide private violence. Jade and Elena entered through loading dock doors. Paolo's fob opened on first try. No alarm. Too confident. They climbed one flight, hugging the shadow between cinder block and fluorescent spill. Through a wired glass panel, Jade saw 2 guards posted outside a room with blackout curtains. Costa men, not house detail. Jade held up 3 fingers, then 2, then 1. She stepped through the doorway with a med cart she'd grabbed downstairs, posture casual, head down like staff. First guard frowned, taking in her black jacket, then recognition hit. Too late. She drove a syringe of ketamine she'd stolen from the cart into his neck through the suit collar and fired her suppressed pistol into the second guard's thigh before he could shout. Elena lunged, catching his falling weapon and kicking it down the hall. Jade dragged both men into a supply closet and opened the patient room. Vivian Hale sat upright on the bed in a pale hospital gown, one IV still taped but disconnected, hair braided tight to keep it out of her face. Her eyes went to Jade, then Elena, then the pistol in Elena's shaking hand. "I was beginning to think you decided I looked better dead," Vivian said. "Can you walk?" Jade asked. Vivian stood, in heels if necessary. She reached under the mattress and pulled a slim steel case no larger than a makeup kit. Key matrix and challenge seed. They checked my jewelry, not my paranoia. Elena let out a sharp breath that sounded like a laugh and a sob at once. "You hid auth keys in a fake clinic while your body double smiled for cameras." Vivian arched a brow. "My mother raised me for Newport summers and hostage negotiations." Jade checked her watch. 0:21. "We're out of time. Service Tunnel B from Pier Cold Storage. We hit AV backbone first, then ballroom." As they moved, Vivian caught Jade's sleeve. "Mateo knows?" "Not yet. Then he will when he sees me." "Good," Jade said. Pier 48's service level throbbed with generators and caterer noise. Jade led them through refrigeration corridors, past stacked crates of donated wine and silent security cameras she'd looped with a firmware exploit from a tablet and 2 minutes of luck. At the AV control room door, an event tech in a tuxedo vest looked up and froze. Jade flashed a counterfeit emergency badge. "Power fluctuation on east panel. Everyone out." He started to protest. She showed him the pistol, low and discreet. "Out." He left. Elena dropped the satchel on the console, hands flying over switchers and media servers. Primary feeds isolated from public net. Of course it is. Jade popped the back panel and rerouted 2 fiber lines into a private bridge node she'd built from stolen routers and duct tape in a laundromat. "Make it not isolated." Vivian opened the steel case, slotted a biometric key into the terminal, and pressed her thumb to the sensor. The system rejected once, then accepted with a soft chime. "Trust transfer records unlocked," she said. "I can sign challenge on live feed." Jade keyed a Deadman app on her burner. One swipe and every evidence bundle would push to the U.S. Attorney's Office, select investigative journalists, commission envoys' private addresses, and 3 rival family couriers who loved leverage more than sleep. She looked at both women. "Once I hit this, there's no taking it back." Elena met her eyes. "Good." From above, applause thundered. Toast time. Jade killed house power. The pier went black. Screams, then a wave of murmurs as emergency lights strobed on in red pulses. Jade toggled backup feeds to her bridge and pushed play. In the ballroom, every chandelier screen, auction displays, sponsor walls, podium monitors, flickered from charity logos to ledger columns, timestamps, security hashes, and the raw gala footage with edit layers highlighted in brutal white. Costa's face appeared in a captured admin log override, r.costa-sec3. Then the cloned badge pings, then witness statement plagiarism, then trust transfer signatures mismatched against Vivian's biometric challenge matrix. On the center screen, text bloomed, "Attempted murder plus financial treason inside." Argent Holdings source chain verified. The room erupted. Jade, Vivian, and Elena stepped through service doors onto the ballroom perimeter as Costa stood at the toast podium, glass in hand, expression snapping from confusion to naked fury. Mateo was 3 feet away, hand halfway to his jacket. Costa recovered first. "Fabrication," he shouted into a dead mic as audio switched to Jade's channel. "Rodriguez is compromised." Jade's voice cut through ceiling speakers, hard and clear. Rafael Costa authorized surveillance edits, credential cloning, and covert transfers to Sicilian rivals. Vivienne Hale was poisoned to fracture this alliance. Elena Marquez was framed for execution. Commission envoys rose from their table. Donors backed away. Half the captains reached for guns they weren't supposed to bring. Costa drew first, a compact pistol from behind the podium, and aimed not at Jade, at Elena. Jade moved without thought. She left Vivienne's side, left her principal in open chaos, and drove into Elena, taking her down as the shot cracked. Pain lit Jade's upper arm, hot and immediate. She rolled, came up on one knee, and fired twice. First round caught Costa in the shoulder, spinning him. Second took him center mass. He hit the podium, knocking crystal and microphones in a shower of glass. For one suspended second, no one moved. Then Matteo's enforcers opened fire. Jade dragged Elena behind an auction plinth and returned controlled shots, not to kill, knees, hands, lights. Disable angles. Keep sightlines broken. "Vivienne!" she shouted. Vivienne was already at the main dais. Blood on her gown from shattered glass, one hand gripping the microphone stand, the other raised with the steel key case. "Listen to me," she yelled, voice amplified over feedback and panic. "I am Vivienne Hale. I did not authorize the emergency transfers displayed. Biometric challenge logs confirm fraud. Matteo De Luca approved a contingency cleanup order naming Elena Marquez and any person sheltering her. Matteo lunged for her. Jade shot the floor at his feet, forcing him back. He looked at Jade then, real hatred finally stripped of polish. "You were mine," he said. Jade kept her gun steady despite blood running down her sleeve. "I was never yours. I was your liability manager." She hit the dead man's swipe. Uploads launched. Costa wasn't finished. He shoved himself up behind the shattered podium, blood soaking his shirt, and ripped a fallen rifle from a bodyguard's hands with a feral grunt. "Everyone down!" Jade yelled. Costa fired wild bursts across tables, not aiming to win now, aiming to make a massacre that would drown evidence in blood. Guests dove under linen and silver. A deputy mayor screamed. One commission envoy took cover behind a grand piano, cursing in Sicilian. Matteo used the chaos. He grabbed a hostess as shield and moved toward a side exit where two loyalists waited with clear lanes. Jade tracked him, but Costa swung the rifle toward Elena again. Always toward the woman he thought easiest to erase. Elena did something Costa didn't expect. She stood. She stepped onto a fallen chair in full view of the room, hands shaking but voice cutting through gunfire as she held up the handwritten timeline pages. "My name is Elena Marquez," she shouted. "I filed the first anomaly report at 14:07 yesterday. If I died tonight, these records still exist with federal servers and 3 independent press desks. You cannot kill math." Costa snarled and squeezed the trigger. The rifle clicked empty. Jade crossed 10 feet and hit him with the butt of her pistol across the temple, then again to the wrist when he clawed for a sidearm at his ankle. He crashed to the marble, still fighting, fingers slick with blood around the grip as he dragged the muzzle toward Elena's chest. "It's over," Jade said. Costa spat blood in her face, grin split and vicious. "You think they'll let you live after this? You picked a clerk over a kingdom." Jade wiped her cheek with the back of her hand. "I picked truth over your appetite." He laughed, weaker, and jerked the pistol free of his own blood, barrel lifting toward the nearest cluster of witnesses. Jade fired once into his sternum at arm's length. The shot cracked through the ballroom. Costa's body snapped back, then went still on the marble in front of the auction podium, eyes open and empty beneath the scrolling evidence screens. Dozens of people saw it. Phones caught it from 6 angles. Commission envoys and deputy mayors and union men, watched Rafael Costa die under the same lights he had planned to command. Across the room, Mateo had nearly reached the side corridor when Vivian stepped directly into his path. No shield now, no pretense. "Move," he hissed. She didn't. "You ordered my death for convenience. I ordered containment. You ordered cowardice." Mateo grabbed her arm. Jade fired a warning round into the doorframe inches from his ear. He froze. Sirens roared outside, many of them layered NYPD, Port Authority, then the deeper federal convoy rumble that meant someone had opened a very serious inbox. Detective Hollis appeared at the service entry with a tactical team, took one look at the screens still blasting data and the commission envoys filming on their own phones, and recalculated his corruption in real time. "Weapons down!" he shouted, suddenly procedural. No one listened until FBI jackets flooded in behind him. Then everyone listened. As agents moved to secure exits, 2 from public corruption peeled off, intercepted Hollis before he could back out of the doorway, and took his service weapon and badge in full view of everyone near the service hall. "Hollis, you are being detained pending federal review," one of them said. His face drained. "On what basis?" "Conspiracy and obstruction exposure, for starters." Cameras swung his way immediately. Mateo tried one last play. He raised his voice for the agents and envoys. "This is an internal criminal conspiracy led by Rodriguez and Marquez. I am the victim of..." Vivian took the mic from the floor and cut him off. "I will testify under oath that Mateo DeLuca authorized extrajudicial cleanup of witnesses and manipulated trust channels for criminal transfer concealment." She turned to the FBI lead agent, a woman with iron-gray hair and no patience. "Agent Kramer, I have direct access keys and chain records. In exchange for structured immunity, I will provide complete cooperation and facilitate deconfliction with DeLuca captains to prevent retaliatory warfare." The room went silent at the phrase "prevent retaliatory warfare." Even criminals respected someone who negotiated in catastrophe. Agent Kramer nodded once. "Accepted pending proffer. Mr. DeLuca, hands where I can see them." Mateo stared at Jade as cuffs clicked around his wrists. No rage now, just disbelief that a weapon had chosen its own target. By 3:10 a.m., Pier 48 smelled like cordite, spilled wine, and electrical fire. Jade sat on an overturned road case in the service corridor, while an EMT stitched the graze in her arm. Elena stood 2 feet away, refusing a blanket despite shivering, answering questions from a federal forensic team with precise, relentless detail. "Checksum mismatch appears in segment header 6, Elena said, voice hoarse but steady. "Cross-reference with override token log and cloned credential ping?" "You can pause," the agent offered. "I can, but I won't." Across the hall, Vivian gave a formal statement to Agent Kramer, while her ruined gown was wrapped in a navy coat. She looked exhausted and regal and furious all at once. NYPD loaded Mateo into a vehicle amid camera flashes. Hollis did not disappear this time. He was walked out through the same corridor in flex cuffs between 2 federal agents from public corruption, while a sergeant from internal affairs inventoried his shield on camera. At the center of the ballroom, medical examiners zipped Costa into a black bag under floodlights and witness phones. Jade watched the doors close and felt the adrenaline drain out of her body like a pulled plug. Her hands started trembling only then. Elena noticed immediately. She crossed over and crouched in front of her, ignoring blood on the floor, tape marks on her own wrists, everything. "Hey," Elena said softly. "Stay with me." Jade let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. "I'm here. You got shot. Scraped. You tackled me into gunfire." "That part's accurate." Elena's eyes shone with anger and fear and something fiercer beneath both. "Don't do that again." Jade managed a crooked half-smile. Can't promise. Then promise this. If you're going to die for me, at least warn me first so I can argue. Jade laughed once, brief and wrecked. Deal. Agent Kramer approached, flanked by 2 marshals. Rodriguez, Marquez. We need full proffers tonight and formal testimony soon after. You'll both require protective custody. Jade looked toward the ballroom where men in suits photographed shell casings beside centerpieces. If we disappear now, captains fracture blind. Blood starts by sunrise. Vivienne answered from behind Kramer. I can hold them for 48 hours. She stepped closer, gaze on Jade. I told 3 senior captains that if any retaliation hits your names, I release every remaining Hale archive and testify to every judge who asks. They believe me? Do you? Jade asked. Vivienne gave a tired, razor-thin smile. I believe in leverage and in paying debts. Jade nodded once. That was enough. 3 weeks later, the federal courthouse in Lower Manhattan was cold enough to make everyone look brittle. Jade sat at a steel table in a witness prep room wearing borrowed civilian clothes that fit like a disguise. Elena stood by the window in a dark suit, reading through her own testimony binder one last time, lips moving silently over dates and account numbers. Outside, cameras swarmed the steps. Inside, Mateo's attorneys filed emergency motions no one expected to save him. Costa was dead, but his network wasn't. Federal forfeiture complaints and racketeering indictments now named his command chain, shell fronts, and estate proxies in pages that read like a map of his ambition. Vivienne entered without knocking, carrying 2 paper cups of bad courthouse coffee. Your fan club is out there, she told Jade. Half the press thinks you're a vigilante. The other half thinks you're a traitor. Jade took a cup. Both halves can wait. Vivienne turned to Elena. How are you holding up? Elena closed the binder. Ask me after cross-exam. Vivienne nodded, then looked at Jade with unusual softness. For what it's worth, the truce is holding. Capos split from the DeLuca brand faster than I expected once the ledgers hit open court. No one wants to inherit Mateo's discovery obligations. Argent? Jade asked. Being dismantled in layers. Legitimate divisions sold. Criminal shells seized. A beat. I signed my immunity proffer this morning. No triumph in it. Just cost. Jade set her coffee down. You did what you had to. Vivienne's laugh was quiet. So did you. A marshal appeared at the door. Marquez first, Rodriguez on deck. Behind him, 2 U.S. Marshals escorted Detective Hollis down the hall in jail khakis and ankle chain toward his own initial appearance. His indictment had been unsealed at dawn. Bribery, obstruction, conspiracy with criminal enterprises, falsification of investigative records. By week's end, he had been suspended without pay, stripped of pension eligibility pending conviction, and listed as a cooperating defendant after signing a proffer that corroborated Costa's off-book coordination with compromised channels. The door shut again. Elena's hand tightened on the binder edge, then loosened. She looked at Jade, and the controlled face fell away for a second, revealing pure fear. Jade stood and moved close, not touching until Elena nodded. I'll be right behind you, Jade said. Elena swallowed. If they twist it, they will, and you'll still tell the truth. Elena gave a shaky breath. You always sound like a mission brief. You like mission briefs. I like you. The words landed between them, simple and unguarded. Jade's expression changed, small, stunned, then certain. Good, because this is the part where I stop pretending this is only about duty. Elena laughed through tears she refused to let fall. Terrible timing. Yeah. The marshal cleared his throat politely. Ms. Marquez? Elena nodded, then looked back at Jade one more time. After testimony, if we both walk out of this building alive, no more almost. No more almost, Jade said. Elena went. Jade watched the door close, then sat, pulse steadying into the old rhythm before operations. Except this time, she wasn't protecting an empire. She was protecting a future with one honest witness and no script. Miami, 5 months later, smelled like salt, diesel, and rain on hot pavement. At 6:12 a.m., Jade stood in the small office kitchen of R/M Risk Advisory, sleeves rolled, checking a hard case by the door. Med kit, passports, 2 phones, cash, extra mags. Habit. Always habit. From the front room came the clatter of keyboard keys and Elena's voice on speaker with a client in Houston. No, we do not make people disappear, Elena said dryly. We make fraud visible before it kills your company. Different service tier. Jade smirked and zipped the go bag halfway. Not fully. Their office occupied the 2nd floor above a marine insurance broker in Coconut Grove. On paper, they did executive threat assessments, due diligence audits, and crisis response planning. In practice, they specialized in the exact intersection that had nearly killed them both: money trails and people with guns. A framed federal commendation sat crooked on a shelf beside an old boxing gym key Jade still carried. The front door opened. Vivian walked in, wearing linen and sunglasses, trailed by no visible security and at least 4 invisible ones. You still don't answer your personal phone, she told Jade by way of greeting. I like people who knock. Vivian handed Elena a sealed envelope. Final transfer documents, Hale Foundation grant to your Witness Protection Legal Fund, as promised. Elena opened it, scanned, and exhaled. You keep your deals. I keep useful relationships, Vivian corrected, then softened. And occasionally friendships. She looked around the modest office. Cheap desks, whiteboard covered in flowcharts, a coffee maker that hissed like it wanted death. This is very unglamorous. It's legal, Jade said. Vivian smiled. How rebellious of you. They talked logistics for 20 minutes. A pending deposition in Mateo's superseding indictment. Final forfeiture seizures moving through Costa's old channels. 2 former DeLuca captains taking structured cooperation instead of bullets. War had not come. Not because men had become moral, but because the evidence had made denial expensive. When Vivian left, she paused at the door. You 2 look different. Elena glanced up. How? Like you sleep, Vivian said, and was gone. Silence settled. Traffic hissed outside. Somewhere downstairs, a forklift beeped in reverse. Elena ended her call, shut her laptop, and walked to where Jade stood by the go bag. You packed for today? Elena asked. Always. Elena touched the bag handle, then Jade's hand. And are we running? Jade looked at the door, then at Elena. In Manhattan, she had counted exits before entering every room because survival required it. She still knew every exit here. She probably always would. But now there was also a coffee mug on her desk with Elena's handwriting on it. Trust but verify. And 2 plane tickets on the counter for a weekend they might actually take. No, Jade said. She moved the go bag from beside the door to the closet. Still accessible, not dominant. Today we're staying. Elena smiled, relief and affection and stubbornness all mixed together. Good. I made lunch plans like a reckless person. Jade leaned in and kissed her, unhurried. No urgency except choosing. When they parted, Elena rested her forehead against Jade's. For the record, Elena murmured, I looked at you in that archive and thought, This woman is going to arrest me or save me, and either way my life is over. Jade's mouth curved. You were half right. Outside, Miami woke up loud and bright. Inside, the office smelled like fresh coffee and printer toner and something steadier than fear. Jade checked the locks out of reflex, counted the exits out of habit, then turned away from both and followed Elena to the front desk, where the first client file of the day waited to be opened in the light.